responding guys when we start adding something for you. Yeah. We have done it, so that's always the
All right, it's 6 o'clock. I'll call the meeting over. That was the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Everyone sign in? First thing on the agenda is the minutes. Accept. Motion to accept the minutes. All in favor? Okay, next thing is emergency management, use of ambulance per diem coverage, limited scholarships, training and health ops, which, by the way, we voted to hire.
Okay. Okay. I'll let it know.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Basically, at the end of this month, we're losing one of our AEMTs who has been on the department for years. He always worked an alternating Saturday shift and he had every Sunday shift. So with that being said, those are tough shifts to try and fill. I also have another one who works 3 shifts. She works the Friday night, Saturday night. She's going to be giving her shifts up at some point. I'm not sure when, but the real problem is coming the end of this month. And what I'd like to be able to do is try and fill those, because I haven't had any on-call personnel wanting to pick those up yet. Because most people have 2 shifts as it is, or some have 5, some only have 1. To use per diem personnel to fill those shifts, which means those per diem personnel don't live in town, so they can't be on call. They have to be at the station, and they're basically not going to do it for on-call pay, which is $6 an hour. They have to get their hourly rate, whether they're EMT, EMR, or AEMT.
Whatever that hourly rate is.
Right. They would be getting paid to be at the station to take whatever calls with them in. Because they don't, most of those people, the per diems don't live in town.
What is the average hourly rate we're talking about?
Hourly rate for an EMR is, which is your first, basically, $16.22 an hour. An EMT is $18.93 an hour. An AEMT is $21.63 an hour. And then a paramedic would be $27.05.
How many of those do we need on?
You need 2 on a shift. Yeah. Yeah.
We don't.
Yeah.
Paramedics on shift.
No. We don't. No. I mean, the most we probably have is an AEMT and maybe an EMR, or an EMT and an EMR, or an AEMT and an EMR.
So I love it for a chunk of our.
Right, for intersects or anything like that.
So at any given time, those shifts that we need to fill would have 2 of these
Yes.
dollar amounts
Yes.
attached to those.
Right.
Signatures.
Right. Now, the good thing is we do have more personnel, like Christina, who you met tonight, is in the class right now. I have somebody else that's getting their license back, and then we have another one who's in class right now who will do per diem work for us, and that might even be transfers also, which we're pretty close on that too, but this is kind of throwing curveball at us with people, all of a sudden saying that they're not, they're gonna be leaving or not be able to. Yeah, that seems to be going around.
Yes, it does.
What's the availability of per diem people?
The availability is actually not bad for one or two of them. They work other places. So I could get them to do some coverage here too.
What are the shifts we're looking to fill again?
It would be an alternating, probably Saturday. And a Saturday, because the other one I spoke of, it's probably gonna be giving their shifts up, does a Saturday, Friday night, a Saturday, Saturday night, and a Sunday. Sunday nights are tough also.
By Friday's gonna be coming out from what I.
Right, Hugh's been covering Fridays, so then we have to cover Friday. See, the full-time staff works Monday to Friday. But on Mondays and Fridays, we have to have somebody else on call with them because Alton starts on Tuesday and goes to Friday, Jordan starts on Monday and goes to Thursday. So, and then every morning from 6 a.m. to 7, there's no coverage. It's whoever happens to be around, or unless Alton picks it up, and then it's some overtime.
So really, we're looking for Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays.
Basically, yes, and I'm hoping to actually fill that with call personnel, but we're still a couple of months away from people getting licensed. So,
What's your expectation of getting more people on board?
right now, it looks pretty good, at least a couple.
Yeah.
So, and that would help on those shifts. It's not gonna be it won't solve all of the problems.
So how long do you expect the need for per diem on the weekend?
That, I don't know yet. I wish I did. I wish I had an answer to that.
No expectation.
Right. It all depends if some of these other people pick up, and some of the call members might pick up some of the open shifts too. It might not be every Sunday or every Saturday or every Friday night or every Saturday night. They might do once in a while. Like Tim would alternate with somebody else on Saturdays. So and it was working out really well.
Did you figure out the cost differential, John?
I haven't. I mean, I can try and come up with something.
Just be curious.
Yep.
So we need to cover it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the amount of hours and what it's gonna cost.
Yes, they're usually like a 12-hour shift.
Gotcha, yep, for like a 12-hour shift, okay.
Right.
And,
That is one of the yellow boxes in the budget. I've already built it in for next year. And about half of what is currently. I mean, let them work up some different numbers, but the long and short of this is the fact that it's difficult. There's three cost items in the ambulance ultimately. Per diem issue, there's a whole funding and expense for the private transport. And then there's a desire to get an ambulance quicker and with a higher price tag, which would impact the operating budget in the ambulance service. So the combination of all of those is about $80,000 a year. Budget that's currently about $300,000. So it's not insignificant. And one of the goals is that the private transport would cover a chunk of those other costs. That's what we're counting. So it all has to be sequenced right, and there's some things you can't live without. You can't live without something to show for the payments. So that's got to be done. And if you're willing to do this, I say you authorize to schedule as necessary to do the deals. You'll get a report on it, and you can watch the cost.
I guess that's the thing, is once we get this up and running, maybe we can kind of monitor that pretty closely over a couple months.
Yeah.
And so we can kind of dial stuff in a bit.
Yeah.
The one thing
That's what we're hoping. Yeah.
Yeah, theoretically.
Right.
Well, I've got you right here. I couldn't write fast enough, so can you go back over just for my knowledge? What the hourly rates are associated, so an EMR is 1622.
Yep.
And then 1893 was the next one, but I didn't.
Yep, was an EMT.
Okay.
And then an advanced EMT is 2163 an hour.
Okay.
And a paramedic would be 2705 an hour.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yep, no problem.
So the average on those, just because I ran some numbers on this, not to overstep John, but
Yeah, no.
we ran some numbers back, what, June?
Yeah.
Because that's like my insurance class running some numbers. And the base of those combinations ends up being near 1893 now.
Yes.
And that's not a benefit to this year though.
Right.
Because before benefits in that position, I'll to cover that at that rate, it's $253,000 a year, so. I want to start looking at that.
It's a lot of transport.
Yeah, well, the on-call stuff's going away and it's big thing.
Well, there has never been a business plan to up it that much.
Right.
That was basically the Showpack plan, which is going to $1 million budget for ambulance.
Yeah.
And there is no sustainable way of doing that.
No. The other thing I'd like to be able to do is cover, if somebody's on vacation or somebody's out too, to be able to cover that too. We thought that, we had that one day covered last week when Jordan was away, and come to find out it really wasn't covered. So we did manage to cover it, it was all right, but.
Ultimately, how many people do you need?
Well, we've got 20 on the roster that 20, there's 16 that are active and 4 do like events, like either the motor club and motocross track, stuff like that. And that would be like some of your per diem personnel that we could bring in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Touch on Brian, you had questions on that one. I'm going to touch on the limited scholarships for.
Yeah, and what we'd like to do too, like if somebody is taking a class, we'd like to either help them out with it or pay for it at the end. If they pay for it themselves, and if they pass the class and pass the national registry and get licensed, we'd like to reimburse them. And if not, if we have to do it up front, we can do it up front, but then we'd like to have them sign like a contract for at least 2 years to give us.
Okay.
So we're not, so they're not just taking the class and then.
What is the value of those courses, John? What do they cost?
Actually, they can cost up anywhere from like $800 or $900 to $1,500. So depending on who's teaching it, where they're taking it, if a lot of it's online.
Yep.
Things like that.
We did a risk assessment, it's probably could be as many as 4 a year.
Right.
The risk might be one person a year.
Yeah. But right now we have one in class, and then we have another one that's actually getting re-licensed. His license is lapsed, and I talked him into getting his license back and doing that. So
The other thing is the scholarship isn't just for those people. Basically, anybody that takes the course and passes the course gets reimbursed.
yeah.
It's only for people that have cash flow, which is you can't front the cost of the course.
So do you have a written proposal for us?
No, I don't. I'm just looking for approval to, that we can, move forward and do that. I can write something up.
It's always good to have it in writing.
Yep. Yep.
So the other, can I add one thing to that? So the other thing is, when we start calling Lebanon, so it's $650 per time
Yeah.
now, so.
They've gone up on their rates down. It's more like 7 something every time we have to go on.
Does
So.
that cost us or does it cost the?
Cost us.
user?
Yeah.
Out of the budget?
Yeah.
Comes out of the budget?
Yeah.
So,
that's another impact factor on this, is you can't hire per diem people and staff this.
Yeah, if we can't field our own calls and they
And
have.
that's just for a straight EMT as opposed to a paramedic.
No, they only are either gonna have an AEMT or a paramedic on their ambulance. Sometimes they have 2.
Is the paramedic rate, I think it's higher. Isn't it 900?
Yeah, depending on what they do for interventions, so.
When's your first weekend that you have issues?
The end of this month.
So before we meet again, right?
Yeah, I have to look at doing something, because I put it out there and nobody has jumped at anything, so.
so basically you're asking us for our approval on being able to contact these people on.
Being able to fill the open shifts with per diem personnel and pay them the hourly rate that they're gonna have, they would be at the station, yeah. Just like the day shift would be. And I will get some, you know, proposal.
Yeah, but I mean, you can start planning too, so
Yep.
we should make a decision
I personally am in favor of it. I think if that, honestly, I put a fair amount of faith into your judgment. And if you're coming to us saying that's the option that you feel we're at, then I feel like you.
Yeah, right now.
Right.
Yeah, I'm hoping that we can, once we get more, if we get more patrol personnel, we can fill those shifts, great.
Sure, we'll adjust it as we go, right?
Right.
So,
Oh, yeah.
as quickly as possible.
Yep. Yeah, that's what I'd like to try and do.
I will, if that's where we're at. I would make a motion that we approve John's request.
All right, so the motion has been made and seconded, just a little bit more discussion. We would like to have some kind of written.
Yeah, no, I will, I'll get that, yep. Yep.
Really don't like voting on numbers.
Oh, I know.
Saying things. But,
Yeah.
To the general principle, I would say yes.
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll get proposal written.
That's on the per diem stuff, that's on the
Yeah.
scholarship.
Right.
What numbers on that?
Right. Yep.
That can be next week.
Sure. Oh, yeah. That's no problem.
I'm not against it.
Oh, yeah. That's fine.
Honestly, John, I agree we should have something in writing, but it probably doesn't need to take up a ton of your time.
Yeah.
Fairly-
Yeah,
fairly
sure.
straightforward.
No, I'll get,
Unless Scott or Stephen would like something different.
No, that's fine.
yep, no, I'll get something writing.
You got plenty of stuff going on. there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
All right, anything else?
Cool.
No, that's it for me.
Yeah.
Thanks, John.
Next thing on the agenda is approval of Twin Bridge contract and billing. This is the same contract we have every year.
Yes. What you guys asked before we started, it's, last year it was about 32,000.
And this is what this dollar amount attached here is for this year. Is it to date or in total?
It's in code for this year. We've already spent some, money. We spent
Right.
four grand with it, so that may not all be, I definitely look at the actual expenditures. There may be some other services we got from somebody, but usually that line is purely
For his management services, and then anything above that, like a new, like we were just discussing, having a new server or something like that. is an additional cost On top of this. And that's all laid out here, so emergency services request.
So who's signing this, me? So in the motion, you sign the contract.
I would say.
All in favor?
there was a bill attached, somebody could approve the bill. So that process for lawyer.
That's the scribble.
Yeah, that's the account. I think it's on.
All right, update on Mitchie Engineering.
So I discussed the situation, talked about it. I called up the question, she explained to them that we weren't going to be changing. To go back to precast, I said that we were arguing the part that was done for the permit. They had one piece left to do and they were going to conclude that I think 2 weeks ago, so I expect it's done at this point. This invoice that's in the package, $11,200. Because the entire balance is left on that, so I initially estimated at 16. We had made a partial payment 3 years ago, so I brought it down to 11.2. And they're happy, and that permit is still available for anything we want to do, whether it's plastic culverts or anything at all. It's a culvert at that location, will need this permit.
How long is that permit?
5 years.
It's a 5-year, and it was as of last year.
No, actually, we wrapped up in the last month.
Okay, as of now, okay. Okay. Is that the date we're gonna go off as to when we get our 5 years from? Not that I want
I
to do
can't
that,
guarantee it, just that's.
but that's theoretically, it's not.
We don't have to sign. We don't have I haven't seen a signed permit, but all the packages come in. And they ask for some additional stuff, and that's what they're submitting now.
Okay.
So from whenever we get that signed, it'll be 5 years from that date.
Okay.
And if you're okay with that, then let them sign the initial that one as well.
We need to vote on it.
Uh,
I think we already voted on it.
Yeah, I'd say the consensus is.
Yeah.
All right, water project update.
That's an initial.
That's what it's gonna be from now on. That's funny.
Okay,
My signature is getting as fast as theirs.
What's that?
Either way.
I think you did.
Yeah.
make sure you do that one.
Steve.
Well, we didn't do it.
No,
Yeah.
we had already
Yeah,
voted on
it's
it.
already voted on that.
Because we'd already voted on it.
Water project updates.
So things are moving, John's not here. So things are moving actually quite well. The only thing I know was a small change they've gone on a smaller excavator, so it will cause us adverse impact on the project. All the timber cutting is done. Nobody's yelling and screaming. Everybody's happy. There is no tax because nothing was taken off site and sold. So Rick Evans is happy, Parkwood is happy, everybody seems to be content. And I believe that the work was done in the lake, so there's an extension of the water line that goes out into the lake to get to a deeper part of the lake, and I believe that that's been done, or enough of it's been done, so it's operational. And now they've switched over, and now it's a pipeline to go from the lake to
The temporary.
well, the temporary, but also between now and winter, it's supposed to be the replacement.
I think John was telling me they were hoping to start drilling through that this week.
Okay. Good. They could do that before, they got all the temporary. I believe that they were temporary this week.
They were going to go by the way.
Okay, any questions on that?
I actually had just a dumb question. See now, the last meeting that we had, it was such a fiasco with that whole water system.
Yeah.
So how did that actually get resolved between the landowner and Kingsbury and the wood being taken off or the wood being was gonna be stayed, or the town didn't have to pay for anything, did they? Or was that all resolved between Kingsbury and the landowner?
It was a long week and a half, let's put it that way. The landowner has certain expectations, he had voiced those expectations almost a year ago. And he wasn't happy. And he was the one that actually filed a report with the Department of Revenue Administration on timber harvesting. So we got into a problem because the logger thought he was going to take the wood and sell it. Kingsbury had the responsibility and he was accountable to Mike Duffy, who's the engineer.
So it was between Kingsbury and the logger. then?
Ultimately, it shared out between Kingsbury and the logger.
Yeah.
But it was touch and go right up until literally the day that they were going to shut down the site. And I will give credit to Rick Evans. I sent out an email first thing in the morning, basically saying, look, you landowner, this is up to you. We need, you're satisfied with the board says the condition. We need something from you saying you're okay with what's going to happen. And you can write it on a cocktail napkin. I don't care as long as we get something in writing. And then I sent to Thompson an email saying, look, what you need to do is do what Rick Evans wants you to do. He runs the show for the state. So I don't care how you do it, but just make peace with Rick Evans. And then I did get an email back. It wasn't really collegial, let's put it that way, from the logger. So then Rick Evans came to the office about an hour after I got that, and gave a copy of the email. He went out, hurry and went up and met with the logger and the property owner. Came back down an hour later with the property owner saying, yep, everything's all set. This is what they're gonna do. And it was fine with me. So it was ultimately between Rick Evans, the logger, and Kingsbury to a lesser extent, and the landlord.
Good.
Nice work.
Yeah.
That was my understanding too, that they all collectively got together and got resolved.
Negotiation.
Yes.
Anything else? All right, cozy corner sale.
Okay, we got an agreement. I was given the task of addressing the issue of asbestos in the building, and we could do that. In an abundance of caution, because there was an issue about the merger, we changed the term slightly from the draft we saw. So originally it was going to be 13,000 square feet in cozy corner to be sold immediately because it's already voter authorization. That might not be accurate depending on how anybody looked at merger work done by the planning. So I reduced it down to roughly 9,000 square feet, which is still the cozy corner property. And then put the balance of it over to the other side, which would require voter approval. I basically allocated the purchase price. The total price for this property, it's a half acre roughly for the whole thing. That means from the side of the Red Wagon all the way over to the side of the far side of Cozy Corner. And the purchase price ultimately is $165,000. So this calls for it to be $99,000 paid immediately for 9,000 square feet roughly for Cozy Corner. And then the balance, which is $66,000, would be paid if the voters approve of the sale of the property in March next year.
That's no, it's the offer.
Yeah, what's that?
You have the offer. You have August 30th, 2022 on both days. So.
Oh, well, we're gonna fix that.
And it's showing that we're gonna.
Cozy corner property is for 80, it's the 66,000, and next year is the 99,000.
All right, so the 99,000 ought to be this year, and it should be August 30th, 22. Okay. This purchase and sale agreement for the 14,000 square feet for, oh, I see, that's what the problem is.
Because the property was reduced, I believe, the number was reduced, is that correct?
Yes, that's right. Yes, that's bad. So this is correct. So it's the 66,000 we're getting immediately, and the 99,000 will be next year. Based purely on square footage.
How did it go from 150 to 160?
Because we sold originally, we agreed to sell that little strip next to.
Right, and we had never.
No, we had a survey already. We didn't have a survey until a month and a half ago. Then we did the merger agreement, the boundary agreement. We got that all approved with the planning board. We still need to go back and get the board approval on the little strip and all the runoff properties. The dates are wrong. No, wait a minute.
It just seems to me that this isn't even the agreement that the council voted for anymore. This is the agreement that we're all kind of making up as it goes because we got to shuffle the deck. So to make sure that the cards come out where we want them to come out.
Okay, well, the agreement that the team worked on actually put out again today. I looked at it again to verify what it says, and what it says is basically the voters vote to authorize the sale of Cozy Corner with the understanding.
This is the agreement that we were quoting.
Yeah.
The two lots were something that we added afterwards.
So I guess that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So,
That's what I mean.
but that was not a vote, that was not voted on, that's the problem, that's gonna. So, but the sale of the Cozy Corner was actually voted.
And
And that money's supposed to go into a.
and it doesn't go in automatic. it would go into the unassigned fund balance. So if we do this right now, that 66,000 goes in the unassigned fund balance with the understanding that the voters get a right next year to put that money into the capital reserve account for commitments. That has to be voted on as well. Then likewise, at the same time.
Wasn't that in the warrant?
Well, it is, but you can't vote it ahead of time by DRA. DRA.
Oh, because the other side, sorry.
And then the same thing we would say on the other 14,000 square feet, it would have the same language, provided that the money comes from the staff, goes into the capital reserve. That's pretty good money.
So this all seems a bit confusing to me. I mean, I'm not a college grad, as I say. What is the actual sale price on the Cozy Corner? Period. Was it 150 grand? Was it 99? Was it 66? There's a lot going on here.
What was advertised and what went out for the solicitation was a request for a price for Cozy Corner that included everything except the small lot next to Red Lake. And CBS, which is Laura Smith, daughter, bid $150,000 for that property. So we had authority unequivocally to sell roughly a third without going back to the voters. So that's what we're doing, is we're selling that third with a proportionate amount of the proceeds on that piece. The rest of it would be in keeping with what we did for the request for proposals. And that would take place once the voters said, yeah, okay, we approve of it. And they would have to do that next March. So the price that was requested, we set it out with a proposal. We said, we told the voters we would told them to consult with a realtor before we sold. Doreen. And Doreen gave me a number that was less than 150,000 is what she thought it was worth. I said, well, our planning all along as a board is that it should be at least 150,000. Answer that if you want to know why. So I said to her, well, we really want to get 150. She says, well, why don't you do this? Go and see if you can find a seller, a buyer for it for 150. If you can, but don't listen, because that's a really favorable price. So that's what we did. We put out a request for a proposal. We extended that request, I think it was a total of 3 months to re-advertise before we got it. We got one proposal and it met the requirement for the 150. So that's 150. The other 15 grand was for the pint size piece next to Red Wagon.
In between the buildings or on the other side or behind it?
It's right next to where the takeout stand was on Red Wagon.
It's where they park.
It's where they park. It's about 30 feet long.
And we voted, well, it was voted over a year or so ago to sell them that. And that has never gone through, so now it's glad in that.
It was a fair amount of work to get it surveyed and then get the deeds drafted.
It's funny because I play a roulette with meeting videos. These guys know, and I watch quite a bit of them, our meetings. And today I spun the iPad and hit it, and it happened to be August 17th, 2021, sitting right here talking about the sale of Cozy Corner. So I happen to be pretty fresh on what happened a year ago because I just watched it an hour and a half ago. So I listened to it. So yeah, we don't need to.
So are they paying for this all at once? Or are they paying for it in?
There's the middle section.
So as long as I've been here and it's always been my understanding that the town had the authority to sell without voter approval. We just needed voter approval to buy. So that's why this deal was originally done and originally sent in as a warrant article. And then DRA came to us and told us, oh, no, that's not the way it is.
Can't do it like.
Right, so that's why this is kind of a cluster right now, we're trying to get it straightened out. But the sale of the Cozy Corner is
Right
100%.
where that building is.
Where the building is 100% legit. It's the other two that are gonna have to go before the voters next March to sell that. too.
Okay, so now I get it.
And specifically, the
Thank you.
property was deeded by Davis. It's the one that's going to get sold immediately. The properties that were sold by Rumico are going to be sold in the second part.
Sharon, do you have a question?
I think what Mike just said answered it, but I'll read it anyway. Jason Curley says, I'm sorry, if the warrant article said sale of Cozy Corner, then we sell that at price agreed upon and put that little strip up for sale in this year's warrant article.
That's what we're gonna do.
Yeah, but hang on, there's another part in the scroll. I don't have my mouse. And then if the warrant article said, oh no, sorry, so sell Cozy Corner for 150, sell.
No, the warrant article is a price.
Yeah, and unless the buyer pays for all this surveying, comes to.
That's already been done.
Yeah, so I think you've answered it in front of.
Yeah, but just for clarification for Jason. The language for the actual sale of Cozy Corner had a deed reference to Davis. So while we think of Cozy Corner as all the land from Red Wagon over to the entrance to the ball field, it's not. Cozy Corner was a Davis property. And the Rumico properties were two other properties. So you could argue, well, the voters intended that all of Cozy Corner, including all those lots, could be sold. I don't want to take the chance on that legally, and neither do the buyers. So we really need to get it very clear that the Cozy Corner property as authorized is the Davis property. And then everything else is going to be a different approval. And what Scott said is accurate. Everybody in the town thought that there was authority that had been approved years ago to do this. And when I was writing up the deeds, I needed to list the authority specifically. Sharon and I went through 40 years of town meeting minutes and discovered that in 2009, there was a warrant article to do just that. But Patrick Andrew objected to it, and they turned it into a study, and the study was approved, but not the actual authorization. So it needs to go back and warrant for next year. It needs to be cleaned up. This isn't the only property it impacts. There's about 4 or 5 properties where the town bought the property at one point, or was given to the town. The only clear-cut authority other than the Cozy Corner authority to sell is anything that's tax deeds. So if we had gotten it as a tax deed, yeah, we could have sold it. And not, we do that every year, we do the tax.
I mean, we just said that there was a confusion and the voters voted on one thing, so we're making sure that we kind of cover our bases and go about it correctly. But in the same thing, we're signing a purchase and sale agreement to agree to sell these people the property that the people who voted thought was already included in the mix, but now it's not. So, I mean.
No, that was not in the original warrant.
Right, but what we're saying is when they voted on it, everybody was under the understanding that it was that whole piece, right?
But that's,
It just doesn't.
It was just listed as Cozy Corner.
Right,
this is a solution to try to.
That's how it was presented to the voters.
Right, it was just.
exactly.
But not, no, I mean,
Yeah, it wasn't.
the stretch of land between, but it's not, you can't classify all voters and put them in the same classification. Because anybody that did any reading or investigation, there's a reason you're waiting until March to do anything with that piece of land between the two buildings, because you can't sell it. You can't sell it right now. There's a reason for that. And that's, you gotta be careful with that.
The vote for Cozy Corner itself was like 445 to 50 or something.
I was there. Yeah, no, I understand
So
that.
it was pretty clear, but being clear doesn't mean legally it's clear. So this is the way to get it.
All right, so
So if you're agreeable to this, I ask you to sign this, the dates are all correct.
Also.
Two.
I am not agree.
Budget versus actual.
I just want to say, I believe that's how we don't really know what we're voting on when we go in and vote. Let it be on record that I am saying that is how, after we vote, we come back and we say, well, how the hell did that happen? I voted. That's how. So, fair enough.
We definitely made a mistake on the original assumption.
So we should start from the beginning and bring it back to the drawing board, not have a purchase order signed for something that we don't even know if we're gonna be able to sell, but then the voters look at it and they say, well, geez, they've already sold that. They've got a purchase order for that, and I feel like I should sign that. I should vote yes. I mean, it just muddies it up. And it's a way to twist somebody's arm behind their back. And I'll tell you, the 5-person committee that we put together, that was also part of one of the meetings I was listening to today. And it was a bit frustrating that we did all of this running around just to get a big fat nothing. And all of us were in agreement. I mean, we put these committees together for a reason. And we did all of this research and went into all of the reasons why, and then it was just kicked out. Okay, and then next, there's another thing, and then there's another thing. And it just, I mean, 2 of the members on that committee clearly stated that they feel like the warrant article was written so you didn't really understand what you were voting on. So now it's going to be the same thing this coming year, where the warrant article is going to look all muddied up, and I don't think people are really going to understand what they're voting on. Because unless you come here and sit down in front of us to listen to all of this stuff that we're going through, how do you know when you're going in March? And yeah, maybe you should do your diligence and come to a meeting, but let's be real about it. At 3,800 people roughly in town, usually 530 to 550 vote. So they don't know. And there's usually what, 20, maybe 25 people now at a meeting? So those people are informed, but
None of these warrant articles go out in private. It's not something we're doing behind closed doors. It's all
I know.
public information.
I know.
And the public can come and ask any questions they want. So,
Right.
You know, that's the way it is. So.
Yep.
All right, budget versus actual.
Okay, I'm just gonna get highlights of the column says fiscal year 2022 is out of date by 2 weeks, so it's just kind of posted Blair's numbers from the last 2 weeks. What we're focusing on there is a column that says fiscal year 2023, and the one next that says CPI. I'm doing this exercise because I want to point out really the opening position on budgeting for next year. And it's somewhat scary. So the first one is we have a policy that we've been following for the last 12 years of not increasing wages dramatically, but to make sure that everybody's wages are consistent with cost of living. So and that has been part of the negotiated contract with the police department for this year. The CPI was released in July for July and July, and we don't use July's, we use August and September. But from the July CPI, it's 8.7% increase. Consumer price index. So it's the rate of inflation for purchasing that people experience, and it's set for upper New England, so it isn't for the country, it's just for our area. All right, that's scary. What does that amount to? It means pretty much $100,000 extra cost in the budget. So that's the first comment. I only have about 6 comments, and I'll try to keep it really short. Page 2. Health insurance. As it turns out, there's some dissatisfaction on health insurance after we went to a less expensive policy. We moved from Harvard Pilgrim to Anthem Blue Cross. I've heard several people say they would like Harvard Pilgrim back. Well, the reason we went to Anthem Blue Cross was because it's $50,000 more expensive with Harvard Code. We also don't know what the rates are gonna be until.
What is the problem, Anthony?
Providers. We did the analysis based on what the co-pays were gonna be.
Yeah.
And, that was pretty much it, what the co-pays were gonna be. Well, the problem is some of the providers that people are used to using are not authorized or accredited with Anthem Blue Cross.
Okay.
Yeah, so, and it's on, as near as I can tell, it's on ancillary services, but this is the primary medical services are, it's really more supportive or wellness services than it is anything else.
Okay.
And the drug costs, I have.
So a question on that, if we change back and people come into the town in this past year and have providers, and they change back, are they gonna be shut up?
No, I think they're actually gonna be just the same. I mean, they're gonna, it's more likely there were more providers in the Venn diagram of Harvard Code. So it's the only place it loses, and it's not on the doctors, and it's on the ancillary services. So there's fewer ancillary services under the Anthem Blue Cross than there is under Harvard Code. The biggest problem is, all right, how do you pay for it? Plus, it's going to be consider an inflationary cost on it, and we won't know what that is until November. So I put it in as a yellow box. That helps. We really don't know, but you can see the comparison if you look at the yellow box and you look over the blood, and the difference is about $60,000. That's a protection problem. Next one's down on page 2. Primarily electricity and heating, oil, and gas. We're anticipating that the electricity is going to go up 50%, and the heating, oil, and gas is going to go up 100%. I don't know what it's going to be. We'll have a better idea before the budget is finalized for next year. Right now, this is a problem, and this raises about $200,000 on the budget. If you look at all the stuff for fuel, for trucks, for equipment, and for the heating, oil, and gas, and for the electricity, it's $200,000. That's a huge thing. The overhead door, it's not a change. It's we planned on doing it this year, but we haven't done it yet. We need to have a service contract. We brought an overhead door in, well, twin state door to fix our doors, roller doors several times over this year. And the service contract makes sense, but we didn't fund it this year. We funded it, but we didn't use it. Cemetery, we restructured staffing in cemeteries and government buildings. So it's comparable to what we are currently doing. We have Barry Guest's brother that works on cemetery, and he works just for the summer months, and that really doesn't change in this budget, but it shows differently on the budget. So you see at the top of the cemetery, it says full-time. That number actually drops because Barry Guest working part-time, but at the transfer station, cover the third slot over there. On the part-time down below, that number goes up, and that's very good. So if you look at it, this year was a total of 18,000. Next year was a total of 24,000. So it is slightly higher on the 6,000. Page 3. But I will say that plan actually solves a bunch of problems with the allocation of staff. Page 3, police department, it goes on part-time from 12 grand up to 33,000. That's for Wayne Egan. There is a failure in the private police department. The department needs to have the services and continue doing what it's doing for the future. So that cost is a difference in terms of what would be budgeted of 21,000. So significant amount of money. Electricity, heating, oil, and gas, and fuel were all issues there as well. The fuel would not, you can see that the fuel in the police department, $28,000 versus 14, huge increase. Ambulance service is an increase of about 75,000. You would see why when we get the ambulance. but it's basically the same thing we already talked about tonight. If you put the per diems in, it's gonna raise money. If you're gonna put in, there was 2 or 3, capital, the increase in how much capital funding for an ambulance is gonna be twice as expensive, it's gonna raise money. So if you look at how much it's gonna raise, it's about 100 grand, and this shows the cost, that roughly 75% of that would come from us. We'll see if we can pass that on to the insurance. If we can, it won't be that high. But that is a problem area right now. Fire department, same type of issues, heating, oil and gas, and fuel costs. Under equipment, it is more expensive for the equipment, but that is part of the long-term CIP plan. So we have the capital improvement program says some departments get equipment, but not everybody gets the same every year. So this year is the year for the fire department, and I believe, if I remember correctly, turn off here.
Turn out here.
Page 4. Building inspection, that's where we moved over to John, all the building inspection functions. There's a slight increase in 1 up from 3 to 7. Here's the drop in Cheryl's position. Original one is we don't know what's going to happen yet on the mechanic salary, but I put it up as a higher dollar amount for discussion purposes. And it's subject to review of the performance. Same thing is true of the road agent. So both of those are going to be subject to performance. And I know it's going to be higher than what we had budgeted for this year, but I don't know much. So it's there again, it's a yellow box, but we're going to deal with sooner or later. A couple of biggies on the highway department. Highway salaries, it's got the red letters in it, it's a purple box, but it really ought to be yellow. So this year's budget for highway salaries is roughly $300,000. If everything happens the way it's been requested by all the parties, that would go from $300,000 to $458,000 or $158,000 increase. So what is it? Well, there's a position that's been vacant for 4 years. It was not filled 4 years ago. And Bob was asked to refill that position. Well, that position fills in, it's about $60,000 to fill that position. That's what done. So that's part of it. The other part of it is, in there is also that cost of living increase, which is right now still, for planning purposes, 8.7. Plus, there was a request back in March, I think it was March, it was February or March, by the highway workers to go up to $4 an hour. Part of that has already occurred, part of it hasn't occurred. It would mean a minimum increase across the board for most of the highway workers of $2 an hour plus the cost of living adjustment. I'm not saying that's what's going to be the final budget. I'm just saying if all of that was approved in this budget, that would be an increase in the budget of $150,000, $160,000. Electricity, heating oil, and gas and fuel, same problem. Fuel is pretty staggering. Right now, it's $62,000 budgeted for fuel, and the projection would be that it could go as high as $124,000, which is a $60,000 increase. Road reconstruction, there was a recommendation, has been for at least the last 2 months, so we need to do something to increase how much we spend on road reconstruction. It hasn't changed in 12 years. It needs to go up. This would be an increase of about 25%, $50,000. It will go up. It really needs to go up. Then the next one down is gravel, and Bob is asking for more money for purchase gravel. And so right now there's a placeholder move from 23,000 to 40,000. And again, this is just based on the request, not a done deal. This is where we are. Transfer station on page 5. I haven't been able to something on the transfer station other than the cost of fuel is going to go up. I did mark recycle hauler for 2 reasons. One is it shows that we spent $25,000 on hauler. That's not accurate. That $25,000 includes all the costs for 300 moving and it hasn't been posted in proper slots. So our real cost on an annual basis looks to be about 9,000 versus 13,000 for hauling. That's how much it costs us to haul the stuff. I put over on the other side, the right-hand side, 19,000. Because I gotta make sure that it's all allocated for tires and appliances and all the rest correctly. So that will probably drop down. I probably will leave the number roughly at 13,000 per haul. Just as a comment, we received, we get a true up on our revenues from recycling. And we haven't officially got the check yet, but I got a call Thursday of last week, and the revenue that's supposed to be coming through is 16,000 for this year, we budgeted 11. So the revenue stream from recycling going to Portland, Maine is $5,000 higher. That's it on page 5.
Where's that trailer that you bought for $17,000 for apply for? Now, where is it on here?
The purchase of it?
Yeah.
It was authorized a year and a half ago.
No, I said on here. Where is it?
It's not. It's not. It was encumbered, so it's carried over from last year.
I think that purchase came out of money that was held over from last year's budget.
Yeah, a chunk of that.
So when's that gonna be put in the service?
Well, that's up to the board. That's all I can say. I will know more about whether to go to service immediately. I'll know that sometime Thursday. But right now, it's gonna be expected Thursday. Went back to Dan Parker, which is the broker, right? So you got somebody over there to inspect the trailer? I said, yes. I said, you run your place? He said, yes. He said, it's what the municipality should. I said, fine, you get it inspected. I said, yes. I said, okay. I said, I'll take the cost of the inspection.
Did you see the report that I?
No, I haven't gotten it. Did you send it to me? I'll take a look at it. Sure.
Anybody with a license inspection is not gonna inspect that trailer.
We'll find out.
So this is, while we're on the subject, I did go to MC Auto, which is in town on Potato Road. He is in the facility that used to be Jack Bateman's, and he is licensed by the state of New Hampshire to do New Hampshire state inspections on big trucks, heavy equipment. He inspected my trucks and trailers, and I got a report from him that there was nothing good and the trailer basically wasn't fit for the road and he would not put a sticker on it. And I also went to Dyer's Welding, which is a local shop who's pretty reputable. That's why I went to those two. They're the biggest, nicest shops in town, and one of them is an inspection station, and Dyer's Welding is a welding and fabrication facility who we were leaning on to do some work with those trailers anyway. So I think his opinion is probably valuable. And in his report, he said the person that sold us that should be embarrassed and take it back. So that's where my two inspection reports come up with from the two guys from town. So now we'll see where the one from the guy who sold us the trailer comes up with. Because that's what I just heard. We're going back to the guy who sold, the broker that sold us the trailer to get it inspected for us.
I obviously had nothing to do with either Dyer or MCF. Okay, so
But you had something to do with purchases on this trailer.
Yeah,
right?
actually, the board of selectmen approved the purchase of an aluminum tray.
Right, but that's nothing, and it would be cool as a taxpayer
But that got sold, and then we ended up with this.
to know who actually went and put eyes on this thing. I mean, I only hauled them for 22 years and not a mechanic, I hauled them. But anybody that sees a patch on a frame with their welds are broke, that thing is not roadworthy. It's a 2004, that thing is nothing but a pile of scrap.
So the consensus.
The trailer you guys are trying to replace is in a lot better shape than that
The
pile
consensus
of
of the
crap.
board is that if they don't take it back to itself.
But you're not gonna get 17 grand for that.
No, maybe, you know.
It would have been great for somebody from the town of Canaan to put eyes on
I
that.
do. I want to ask, why is there two?
Instead of buying it from a broker that's trying to sell the trailer and basically cameras are on and shoving it up the butts of whoever bought it. Because that's exactly what happened. That trailer that is not roadworthy. You can go under it, put your finger right through the floor and look up and see daylight.
Why don't we go and look at this stuff before we buy it?
That's what I was saying. Did anybody put eyes on this except for
You might as
the
well just
broker
open up the
salesman
door
that
and
was
hand
selling
money
it?
out to whoever wants it, because that's basically what you did. I mean, you guys are gonna be a little more responsible on that. You're talking taxpayers' money.
The third axle, I didn't even crawl under the other two axles, but the axle closest, you could have crawled under it.
I actually did it.
You did?
Yeah, no, that.
How about that big brace in front of that axle, the furthest one? That's closest, actually.
The rod
That
is
keeps
about
it-
that big around?
That keeps it, yeah, that keeps it shucking back and
You
forth.
know
But
what
you
that
can,
does?
it's rotted,
No, you know what the function is?
keeps it from shucking back and forth. I drove tractor trailer for 22 years, Mike.
All right, so.
You can put your finger through it, it's rotted. The thing is a
Mike,
pile
have you
of
driven
junk.
truck?
Have I?
Have you driven trucks, big trucks? Yes. So then you really shouldn't have the
No, you're
say
right.
of what's going on because you don't
So what you're
understand.
saying-
You're just taking advice
All right.
of what you're seeing.
We already know we got screwed in the trailer, and we're gonna try.
Okay, so then it's up to you board members
So yes, it is.
to go look at it instead of just taking his advice and saying that's what you're gonna buy.
But
I mean, if you're gonna buy a
I would have
car,
gone down
you
and
just
done it
gonna-
for free from the town that you guys bought it from.
David,
Due respect, Steve, I disagree to send the board members, because I don't see one of them up there that drives a semi.
yeah, we're in the same boat.
So you're sending,
I would have done it for free.
So
I
then you
mean,
guys have no business of buying it.
you'd be better off to send somebody that knows what they're looking at. I'm not qualified. Have I driven a semi? Yes, but I'm not qualified to tell you. Send somebody that's qualified, rather than send the board. Have the board send
So I
somebody
will say,
that's
lesson learned.
qualified to look at it.
Yeah. So,
yeah, but lesson learned at $17,000 that,
if-
Well, a new one's like
If what we're told is true.
No, I understand that,
it's
but
worth
that thing
25,000,
needs-
so maybe we
you're talking about $30,000 to put it on the road.
That's what I heard.
If you wanna talk to me after, we have to give you the facts.
I don't want to, I'd rather talk to you on camera. Everybody's watching us.
Why
It's not
can't
my choice.
Stupid things like the driver's side. All I did was look down the driver's side of the frame. There's a huge patch on the frame that's already cracked.
this paper shuffling stuff's gotta stop, Mike?
I would like to answer it, okay, but I can't, so there. So
So-
wanna ask me out there?
Well, then it's not your responsibility to come up with a final decision
I'm
on
not
what,
making a final-
that's what you did, because you called the person and you bought it without going through the whole board and asking their opinion.
I asked him twice. and
No.
I got just-
No,
So
you're caught in a lie, Mike.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, you are. You're caught in a lie.
Prove it, please.
Like everything else you do.
Because John Dyer isn't licensed to do trucks.
no, but this guy, I'm Matt Charbonneau, owner of MC Auto Repair LLC and licensed New Hampshire State Inspector for automotive and heavy commercial truck and trailers, have upon request of Dan Collins physically inspected a recently bought trailer which was located at the Canaan transfer station. Trailer was located in rear of the station next to the gravel stockpiles. I am providing the below information based on my professional unpaid opinion. I didn't pay for anything. There are several areas on the trailer that have been structurally compromised due to rust or corrosion. Several previous repairs that have been made due to rust or corrosion are again in need of additional extensive repair. Areas that are affected by rust and in need of repair are listed below, along with general inspection items. The fifth wheel plate, numerous cross members, spring hangers and tie bars, body sides, rear door, brake shoes are below 35%. Tire wear is below 50%. Please note that this is not an all-inclusive list, as I cannot accurately inspect the integrity of the operation of the brakes due to not having the correct air supply. The trailer is in need of extensive repair to meet DOT on-road requirements. At this time, I cannot put a dollar value on repair work or whether the trailer is worth such repairs.
So my comment back on it is, I wanted to get up as another opinion, which I told you at the beginning. I did have Fred Hammond come over and son come over and go through that thing from stem to start. All over, top, bottom, sides, everything. So they identified what they thought ought to be repaired. And I wanted to get two opinions. One is I wanted to go to either Sable or Freightliner for the final inspection. I wanted to see how much, if it doesn't, I want to see what the nature of it, if it doesn't meet it. Frankly, there was a major difference of opinion in what Dan just read and what Hammond has indicated is real and not real in terms of the structural integrity of the truck. I would also point out as a fact, do you know Farnsworth, the guy that sells equipment all over New England?
No,
Okay, I've known him for probably 40 years, okay, a long, long, long time. He sells used equipment throughout New England. And first comment is aren't used pieces anyway, because there are no new ones being delivered because of the cost of steel and aluminum. So the one we were going to buy was from Meredith. Meredith can't get a delivery. They've been waiting 2 years for the delivery of a trailer, and it's still not coming in. So if you go out to truck paper or any of the magazines to see what's being sold, the live force, the answer is there's nothing being sold in the age and quality of what we usually get, which is a aluminum trailer that's about 10 to 12 years old. That's what we usually get, is something that's in the 10-year range, 10 to 12, it's aluminum trailer. That's what we usually get. There are absolutely zero listed, zero.
no, actually there was. I was on the
Okay,
computer.
if you could deliver one, that'd be great.
No, I'm just telling you, I drove truck forever, okay? I used to haul up to that landfill in Portland that you guys want to start going to.
We don't go to landfills, but that's okay. So Farnsworth.
Jewel Transport, I hauled for him. You know what? I got put out of service up in Maine, and it cost Max Jewel. You know why they put me out of service? Because they crawled underneath there and looked up and they could see daylight. So what does that mean? So whatever you're hauling is going out many times.
Okay, so what kind of floor is under a live floor?
That one down at the thing, rotted.
No, what does it look like underneath?
What does it look like?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Because there is no floor. It's slabs.
Sure, what do you think the slabs?
No, forget it. All right.
I'm out of here. Yeah, that's right. Nobody listens to
I
nobody.
appreciate it. It's been continued for years at this point, and we just spent a bunch of money, but, so I will leave it at this. You just told me that Dyer is not a certified inspection shop to look at it, so his opinion shouldn't matter. And then you stated that you had people go look at it who's not a certified inspection shop who you're taking their opinion from.
No,
So I'm good to move on, but I mean, I think the point has been made.
All right. Anything else on the budget?
yeah, so the balance of it is, you got another increase on page 6. Well, you got a page on page 5 and on page 6. Bottom of page 5. If you look on the line, it says debt service principal and interest, it goes from $1 to $9,000. So there's a proposal by Bob Cushman to buy 4 million pieces of equipment on this page. So I got a rough estimate of what it's going to cost to buy those items, and the annual cost of the next 8 years would be $90,000. So that's a $90,000 increase. On the next page, which is page 6. There is a reduction. So if you look under 2 capital reserves, it's like the second review block down, it drops from 160 to 110. So we're buying 4 new ones, so we got 10 other ones that still have to be replaced during that cycle. And the minimum we're gonna have to put into the capital reserves, unless we're gonna continue to buy a lease purchase, would be $110,000. So the total amount going in for either lease purchase or capital reserves would be $200,000, which is an increase of $40,000. Down under water and sewer, there is an increase, not a huge increase, of going to a part-time person working with profit. It's roughly about $10,000 to $12,000 a year, both on water and sewer. Under ambulance, which is page 7, and we're almost done. Under salaries, you can see that the salaries are going to go up a significant amount. It's about $30,000 or $40,000, and that's private transport is not counted in that job. So private transport is a function also of the revenue side.
Right.
But this is still $40,000, but that doesn't include the reviews. And then in the last page, which is page 8, which is the capital reserves, if we're going to accelerate the replacement of an ambulance and go up significantly on the cost of that ambulance, it would require another 30,000 or so for the year over the next 3 to 4 years. That's it. So that's what the budget starts from.
Any questions? All right, so we've got a few things in other business. We have. Anybody have any other business before we go? All right, sorry. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, in June, a decision was made on the speed bumps on Reef Road, so after that decision was made, I sent 6 quotes to the highway department, like you requested.
Yeah.
The chief, highway CC. Since then, I haven't heard anything. I informed the street, so there's about 10 households, now it's kind of waiting on a decision. I'm just wondering if there's been any update on that, because it's kind of like a black hole. Also, the speed bump that's on High Street has been disintegrated.
Yeah, I readjusted that on the way up.
Okay, good.
Yeah, we're trying to find parts to replace those. I talked to Mr. Freeze the other day about my thoughts on those speed bumps.
Okay. So is that, that's my frame on that many times that we're gonna get there?
Well, hopefully we can find the parts at the shop and fix what's there, but I think we may want to go on a different direction like we talked about.
So far as the speed bumps that you've sent in estimates for were probably undersized, they were too short. And as Bob said, they're having trouble getting them, they're not really available, so. We just started discussion the other day, and I haven't discussed it with the board or not, but we're looking at a different option for next year. Probably not this year because we're getting to the season anyway, so. They can hold up, but,
No, we appreciate it.
we're kind of behind the 8 ball a little bit with Bob coming on late when he did, and the change over there, so we're doing this.
Am I also able to just I apologize, just on the conversation before, I'm a new resident of the town, I've only been here 2 years. It's slightly disconcerting because I would put my faith in the selectmen to make the best decisions available. And it feels like there's a gap here where you're not getting the data needed to make an informed decision. I work in data analytics and research. It seems like there's a major gap. Seeing selectmen with town managers arguing makes me kind of nervous that the decisions that you guys have to make isn't being fed by public information channel. So I don't know if this is a thing, but as the executive council for this town, it is a little horrifying to see it in action. So if there is an informed decision-making problem, like even the healthcare plan, changing healthcare based on co-pays, the due diligence should be based on provider networks, just on patient healthcare, and all of that. I work in healthcare. So
Just remember that the healthcare issue,
like
issue, I mean, that also gets vetted through the budget committee too.
Yes.
So it's
So I'm not
a one-person decision.
I'm not living in blame here, but as a resident of the town, I trust the selectmen, and if you guys aren't getting the correct information, that needs to get fixed.
So, Marge, your point is well taken, and it's been on the topic of much discussion recently. So.
I would add, we have an administrative not manager, my friend.
Okay.
And not to you, I've been saying that every time I hear that, just to, so everybody is ingrained, and we have an administrative not manager. So, but I appreciate it, and it's a good heads up, we're paying attention. So, thank you.
All right, so you had some questions for Bob?
Actually,
Oh, go ahead. Dan, I know you're aware of it, I don't know if they are, but we have a portable radio from the highway department that is in excess of $500 that has still not been returned. I saw a good use where Bob could have had it the other day in calling trucks, and we've actually been taking a couple of the portables that we do have that work and putting them in graders and trucks, because I believe, and this is just my assumption, and my little bit of knowledge that I've had with two-way radios, that a lot of the problem is with these two-way radios, they've been put in the trucks, they've been improperly wired and improperly mounted antennas and not tuned, so we don't get the reception and stuff that we have.
So it's, to my knowledge, that we've been having certified radio company come and install the radio. Because I was 10 feet behind our grader today and I went on and I could not talk to my grader operator.
So none of them are in sync.
The radio just don't work.
So,
Well, hit next, wherever, so there's something wrong electronically, so I was told that nobody that is a professional radio installer has installed these, so we don't know if they're connected to the repeater correctly or not, and that would be the same, you know, I mean, if the repeater didn't work right with our radios in the fire department, they would be in a lot of trouble. There is, you guys don't have a repeater, you don't, I don't, but I got a laptop, and repeater. You go car, well, we don't. Well, we're supposed to, we don't have a, maybe we're supposed to, but we don't.
No, we don't. We're site to site basically, but I mean, we can't even get site to site. I mean, Mud Pond Road, I couldn't even hit you guys at the end of it today.
We saw a fire was behind him in the grader, and he couldn't get me talk to him. So,
Would it behoove you to contact Ossipee and have them give you an evaluation of these radios? That's a professional installer. They do all the police, all the fire, all
Most of the fire.
the, yeah.
Yeah, I know Beltronics have been top too.
But I mean, have somebody professionally
Where
give you an opinion on these radios.
you never use
Why they
this,
don't work.
but you
I
want
agree
to
with
use
you.
it.
When you can't talk 30 feet and it's the problem.
yeah,
so
And
It
it's just
needs to be
pulling,
resolved.
it's just pulling random power from places, which you may not pop a fuse, but that radio is not getting the power that it really needs to transmit and receive, you know, and it's wrong. But the portable radio is still missing and not,
so
as far as I know, return. Now,
So
that's
what
to
do
the
you,
highway department, not just the town. And if any other department feels that he needs radio, then they will issue that radio. This is not cross. Now, I've had to take my fire department radio and use it a couple times to the highway, and I shouldn't be beating on it, because especially if we get into stuff, going to places where we're grinding metals and stuff like that, and I forget about it, that screws those lights up terribly with that fine dust. It just hits on the magnets and they don't. You know,
it's all news to me, so first time hearing any of this, so.
I've got a couple suggestions and, you know, Scott, were you gonna say something?
no, I haven't heard this either. It's in 15 years, I've not heard the name.
Yeah, right.
Has this always been an issue?
Yeah,
Yeah, since
and
I've come on, so I'm assuming it was before I came on.
I will say, I am finding that there are a lot of things that we're aware of now that people just never brought up. So I believe that you haven't heard that.
No.
And one of the things I'm just hearing tonight is, you know, they were installed, but they never sink them in. There are some fire trucks, there's some fire equipment that aren't working properly, some emergency medical response that aren't, there's the highway department that's not. I mean, I think if there's a company in Ossipee, I know the last thing we need to do is spend money. But in essence, we're spending money daily by not having these things working properly.
But this is emergency.
That's what I mean.
Radios.
We should just
It's not
spend it
just
and go
John
get it done.
talking to Joe over here in the corner. It's emergency, and what do you call the highway? I call the highway emergency.
I do
If
too.
we need a sand truck here now for the ambulance.
I'm in agreement with you,
They
Dave.
need to be notified.
well, that's another reason why we have those emergency channels in the highway department. So if we're out on a route, or out doing something, we may be able to hear it or something. And
Yeah.
then
Right, and
I did talk to them if they get a problem, or that it's communication. It comes right down to no different than what Mars was just saying about up here. It's communication. Don't have communication, you haven't got it.
right. And I agree. I will tell you, I've reached out to the person who has the radio twice myself with no response. So at this point, in my opinion, we see if Mr. Frank can go and contact that person with we have the serial number.
We have the serial number, the PO,
Right,
and the serial number is from Ossipee to match that radio.
we can chat about that at some point.
When, I know they went to this one.
Falling on deaf ears when I reach out, or when we reach out, because I've done it on the board's behalf, requested the highway department. So if you can try to get a hold of someone, that would be perfect.
First time hearing of it, so I'm assuming, I think I know what you're talking about, but I don't.
Yeah,
So
yeah, Bob Scott still got the radio that he had when he was highway road agent. So that's
Everything that's
what
happened so far is a request to Bob, so that's why I pointed to you. I think the
Yeah.
logical response on that. The town's policy, by the way, is to use us. You know, that's what we've done with every department except highway, because Bob did everything himself, or he thought he was doing it himself. I know he used us in some of it, And that's what I go to, is to use Ospey
I
Mountain.
don't have a problem using Osprey. I think the less vendors.
When we want to bring anywhere from the town office, we use Ospey. All of, as far as I know, all of Sam's stuff goes through Ospey.
I will get.
Since you're talking about two different departments, either you and John need to get together and reach out, please.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't want to come out here twice because it's two different departments.
Right, you guys can collaboratively get together, figure out who's gonna reach out to them. It's
I
gonna
know
be
which
tight.
vehicles are affected, and if it's all, it's all.
And
Are they gonna?
the repeater is not something that the highway department has any part of. That was, there was a whole initiative. that-
I always said that in my previous job, we used to bounce off.
We do have a
We have to
repeater.
say it.
That's fine.
But I know that, I'm sitting here, I took a truck into that building.
So where you want to contact an Ospey, you need to get those red lights taken out of that. highway. But that utility could probably get some stuff swatched over to it, because that has orange lights.
Oh, the red lights out there, yeah.
So,
The red lights out there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
so when they hear doing the radio, just make a day of it.
I thought they were out of that.
No, set up for a fire truck. On a highway. I don't think you go.
All right.
So, we got a report estimate from them, and I mean, I'm sure we'll move forward, but
That's for the lighting issue, for the radios, get together, figure out which vehicles aren't working properly. Have them
Chief, I'll get you tomorrow morning.
Yeah, get a good comprehensive idea, have them come, put together what it needs and what it's gonna cost.
Yeah.
And let's work on getting some stuff straightened out, and we'll talk with Sam before the meeting is done tonight, and we'll get a game plan to go take the next step and try to get the radio back, so you guys have communication.
I still have probably one, my second one,
Sure.
mechanic.
Still ate one more week.
So this is
One more week, so.
Here's the situation with the mechanic, all right, we hired who we collectively thought was the best applicant. And on paper, and from talking to this gentleman, I do believe that he would be a good mechanic. He told us that he has built a reputation, so he lived here before, he's familiar with some of the people who used to work here in town, he knew generally where the highway department was. He's moving back here to be with his sick mom and stuff like that, so he is coming back. But he's lived in Virginia, he's owned his own shop since 2004. He owned a race team down there and this sort of thing. He let us know that he's developed a reputation of the guy who does what other people don't want to do. So he works on farm equipment to lawnmowers and everything in between. So he did let us know that he does have a business there that he's had since 2004 that he has to sell. He has to move his life from Virginia to here. He was planning on doing that one day. From what I understand, something got messed up with the sale of his business. They had to go back to the drawing board, and then it's just happened again. But he has not left us hanging. He has touched base with us. He's got a hold of us and let us know that he's still trying to, or still wants to, and he's in. He's taking the employment. But he can't come here until his business is sold down here. So whether that's a perfect case scenario, I don't know, but that is the real answer.
I'm just looking at it, we got a whole fleet of stuff to get inspected in 45 days, and that would solve you a lot of problems with that situation that Myra started the conversation on, so.
Right,
You
right.
know,
With the budget.
how many times can you keep going before, I know we were looking for 2 years, but, and then giving a guy a fair shot, I don't know him or anything, but I know.
Well,
I've moved not quite Virginia, but I've moved a far long distance, and
I get it. I will tell you, out of the applicants we had, unless we're willing to go back to the drawing board and put it listed all again and hope we don't get the same ones. In my opinion, I know it's not optimal and it's not really working out the way we had hoped, but I think it's better than the applicants that we had. I do, you just, and I'm being honest with you.
oh yeah.
I wish he was here too. He did tell us at this point, he plans on being here the 22nd.
It's just every week, and that list
I
gets
know.
multiple longer with it, and we're running some of this equipment that's,
So,
and we're not mechanics, it's not our
I know.
job. so.
And I will say this, the highway department as a whole has done a pretty decent job of keeping all this stuff kind of stitched up and barely running and trying to make it happen, along with all your other daily responsibilities, so it doesn't go unnoticed, but That's the real answer, the only one I got for you.
No,
Dave?
can you job, I mean, I understand where you're coming from, on this equipment, can you job it out, some of the worst case scenarios?
We have been.
We have done,
Yeah.
I'm gonna send a truck out Monday to get jobbed out.
Well, to get an estimate on
Yeah.
what it's gonna cost to get it fixed, the headlight don't work, directional light don't work. The brakes don't hold.
Yeah, that's yours.
So things are unraveling.
That's what it says, I got 4 of the trucks lined up, I got a 1 ton, the steering box is not right at all. I'll go across the road without knowing, so that's scheduled to go to Claremont, Chrysler, not Littleton, to see what the deal is with it. And then I have another truck that's a transmission. When I talked to the dealer about it, didn't hear another word, thought it was taken care of, it brought to my attention that it was never taken care of. But when you start to go up a hill, it shifts out on you, and then you start going backwards in the truck.
Hang on,
So the dealer needs to come and program that transmission. So they'll be coming up for that. There's another truck that the camera don't work, the steering wheel's not angled, and another truck that the skate brake doesn't work on it.
So there's a few things in the mix. Personally, I don't see how any mechanic, no matter how good you are, is gonna come in here and keep up with that workload. In my personal opinion, we should, even after he gets here, prioritize the things that he can fix in-house at a fairly good response time. And the things that are bigger issues, we should still farm them out a little bit until we get ourselves caught up, so we don't take a man who's used to working at his own shop and overwhelm him to the point where he leaves.
Well, the reality is, we've got 2 months and it's gonna be snowing.
That's what I'm saying. That's, yeah, if we get there. So, but
So is there a contingency plan for if the 22nd comes and he has another delay?
Well, we go back to subbing it out like we've been doing. Continue to sub it out, so.
I guess I would like to put some thought into how, we've got to at some point put some thought into how long do we let someone pound something out before it becomes them stringing us along, maybe they're figuring out a different path.
Yeah.
Right?
Maybe I forgot there's a lot of jobs open,
There is. I will tell you at this point, there's been 2. There's been 2 delays. So, I'm, for lack of better terms, okay with 2 delays, but you start getting 3 or 4 times, now you're talking several months. And before we know it, this guy's got himself a job in Oklahoma that he's been lining up on our
Have
week.
we communicated clearly that we've accommodated delays, the town has accommodated delays, and there needs to be a hard line on those delays?
You show up, or you're done.
You fly down and sell that, you fly down for the closing or whatever, he needs to get there.
Yeah.
It's gonna be on the job.
All right, so we have some people waiting for,
Just want to remind people that the next public meeting is at the EOC again.
Yeah, still at 6 o'clock. All the meetings will be at 6 o'clock still, so we can all make them a little better. But going forward through the rest of the year, we'll be back at the EOC.
okay, so we need a motion to go to.
Make a motion.
I will second.